So hi, my name is Vlad Badi. I'm together with Răzvan Ulea, and today we are going to discuss about AI APIs. First of all, some things about us. Also the agenda for today, we will be covering an introduction to AI for the people that are not so well versed into this field, an introduction to APIs, some demos that will be done in Flutter, and some case studies of APIs. But first of all, some things about us.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Răzvan Ulea. I'm 21 years old. I'm studying at the Faculty of Engineering in Foreign Languages in Fields. And the fun fact about me is that I want to learn how to handstand. It's my personal goal, which I haven't achieved yet, but hopefully it will happen soon.
And as I said, I'm Vlad Badi. I'm also 21 years old. Me and Răzvan are colleagues at Faculty of Engineering Foreign Languages. As a little kid, I wanted to be an actor. That's my fun fact. And also this year, I had the pleasure to be a 2-time hackathon winner on the podium. So first of all, we will talk about some introduction to AI in general for the people that are not so well versed in this field. Basically, we are trying to respond to the question, what is AI? And AI is a very big field. It's a field, basically, if you're trying to say a definition of this, AI is a field of computer science aimed at building machines capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. This is a very broad description. Basically, what it's AI is an attempt of technology that mimic human functions. We are trying to create machines that can think, learn, understand, and react. That is the main goal. Perhaps one day, maybe even possess consciousness, as we are already hearing about artificial general intelligence. Here you have a mind map of our answers of what's in AI, and we need to discuss about branches of AI. Nowadays, you can find AI in robotics, in machine learning, in natural language processing that you are using every day with ChatGPT, and in computer vision that is powering the autonomous driving that is in Tesla, for example. The techniques that are mostly available today in AI are based on machine learning and deep learning. In machine learning, you will have 3 main subtypes. Supervised learning, that is learning done of a system with some help from a human person. Unsupervised learning, that is basically freestyle, and reinforced learning that is trying to reinforce on some response that is given of its. For example, if the computer generates something and you will tell him it's wrong or it's bad, he will learn based on your response. And also deep learning, when you have deep neural networks that are trying to mimic the functionality of our brain, and deep neural networks that are taking this further on. Basically, in the AI, you will have 3 parts. The learning part, that the model is trying to learn what it's trying to do in a different field, about reasoning, what is the response that it need to give, and correction to give better answer in the future. And some examples that you may or may not have seen so far are voice assistants like Siri on iPhone, image recognition that you can see people's faces in some cameras as you try to focus on a camera, and also autonomous vehicles like Tesla I mentioned earlier. Okay. So if you are trying to categorize AI for our part in APIs, we can go into 2 main types, narrow AI and general AI. Basically, in AI APIs that are readily available today, we'll cover the narrow AI types. Each type has its own capabilities, limitation, and future prospect as well. So if you are trying to work with narrow AI, there are models that are designed specifically to perform a task with intelligence. They have limited context and they are very good at what they're trying to do, but not more than that. They are highly specialized in their field. And you can have chatbots like ChatGPTs that automate customer service by handling inquiries. You can have recommendation systems, like when you're trying to watch Netflix and you are not so sure what you're trying to watch next. And also autonomous vehicles like cars, for example. And you can go further and further with examples. The main part is that narrow AI works within a recent range of instructions and doesn't have genuine understanding. They are just very good at what they're trying to do on a specific set of things. And often using vast amounts of data to refine its algorithm. If you are going to the general AI or artificial general intelligence that is not yet readily available as of now, maybe in some years from now, it's a leap forward for what we're trying to have now. This type of AI would be capable of understanding and learning any intellectual task that a human can, but it is, as I said, it's largely theoretical at this stage. And you will have adaptable intelligence like a human. You will have scientists that can perform independent science research. You can have fully autonomous agents or person-assisted robots, like the one you are saying to here is from a game that is playing with this idea of general intelligence, which is called Detroit Become Human. This level of AI could potentially perform complex decision-making that require intuition and intelligence, and also emotional intelligence, not just natural intelligence. Implications of achieving this are profound, and they will be affecting every aspect of society. And it opens up scenarios we often see in science fiction, as I said, with the games. Why we describe these types of AI? Because understanding these two types of AI is essential, as it informs us of our current capabilities, technical, and you can make some sort of judgment what you can try to use in your application as of now. And also, AI can be done in every industry because it's very adaptable. And some of us here, you can see on the screen some fields that are readily also impacted by AI. We can have supply chain management that is done in logistics, that is already used by Amazon. We can have transportation as in Tesla, as I said earlier. We can have healthcare that you can develop potential treatments from some diseases. In finance for optimization on the stock market, fraud detection, and so on. In retail, you can have example of personalized shopping experience or predicting trends. And in education, it will be nice to be some sort of system that learn the environment of the needs of individual students and facilitate personalized learning experience that optimize engagement and retention rates. And now my colleague will take over to introduce you to the API.
Yes, hello. So basically, before we start talking about AI APIs, we have to first understand what APIs are. So we will get to the next slide. So we'll also try to answer the question, what is an API? Basically, an API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it is a set of rules that allows one piece of software application to interact with another. Basically, it acts like a bridge that is connecting two applications. You can take the data from one application and then use it in your own. And how it works is it basically has through endpoints. Basically, these are the key components. The endpoints are the URLs that we use when we are trying to get a request from the API. Basically, each endpoint represents a specific function or resource that the API provides access to. For example, if we have a database of users, then the endpoint might be ... /users. That could be an endpoint to access the user data. And then we have the request methods. Request methods are basically actions that we can tell the API to to apply on them, to apply on the API. These are actions that we can apply on the API, such as the CRUD actions. CRUD actions are create, read, update, and delete. Usually, we use HTTP request methods in these APIs. Basically, we will use the equivalent of those versions, which are get, post, put, and delete. Then we have the request parameters. APIs usually require additional parameters to be included in the request that you try to specify the details of. And then we have the response. The response basically is like in HTTP. The most common HTTP response is for the 400 ones, most specifically 404, which means a client error, or the 500 ones, which is a server error. Basically, when our app works and the request is successful, then we have the 200 response that comes to us, and then that means the request was successful. Then let's dive in how it works. Basically, we have data formats. Basically, API often support multiple data formats for requests, such as JSON, XML. We will focus on today's lesson on more of JSON because it's less complicated and more beginner friendly. Then we have the authentication and authorization, which basically means that every API has an authentication key. Basically, we will use that authentication key, which is bound to a specific account, to use it in our app, to tell the API that we want to use to use it. Then we will have the client-server communication, which is, as I talked before, client-server communication, which follows a request-response model. We request stuff from the API, and he responds to us. And then we will have the some core examples. Some core examples will be like social media APIs, payment APIs. Many apps that we use actually use a payment API. They don't implement in the code their own payment methods. And another core example will be the weather API. For example, if you want to make a weather application, weather mobile application, then you won't stand there and update every time the data, yeah, the weather updates. They will be fetched automatically from the weather API. And basically, the purpose that we use API is to enable communication between software, application, and we allow different systems to work together. Then we will jump to types of API. We have public and private, which we will talk about now. Basically, public and private, they allow third-party developers to create applications. Even you or I can use these public APIs. They are not restricted in any way, only by pricing. Sometimes it encourages developers to build upon the platform, leading to new creative use cases. We will see some use cases in the demo and also some case studies. And we have many tools and tutorials created by other developers. Stack Overflow and Google is our friend in this case. And some examples, of course, Twitter, Google Maps, as I mentioned earlier, and the weather map. Then we have the private APIs, which are basically used only inside an organization. They are not public and accessible by anyone. Basically, it's because to ensure the data that is not exposed to external parties, like the payment API, and it also allows for good communication between internal systems. And basically, it's people's jobs to be sure that that API is working. Now we will see the differences about SOAP, about RESTful, and about GraphQL. Basically, as you can see, we in programming like to abbreviate things as much as possible. We don't like to run our mouths. We like to run our minds. Basically, SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. RESTful is a representational state transfer, and GraphQL, basically QL stands for query language. We will see how how they work, what they are, why they were created, and where they're used. Basically, let's talk about what. So SOAP is a protocol for exchanging structured information in the implementation of web services. RESTful, we use it as is an architectural style for designing network applications like websites, or it's also used in Internet of Things. And query languages, GraphQL is a query language for APIs developed by Facebook. And in 2015, it has been made open source. And let's see how each API is communicating, how it's used. Basically, the SOAP uses an XML message format, which is it could be easy or beginner friendly, but more friendly is the RESTful API, because as I said, it uses standard HTTP methods. It uses get, post, put, and delete for communications, and the GraphQL uses its specific GraphQL query language. Why should we use them? Basically, SOAP supports complex operations and transactions. RESTful is simple and beginner friendly, and it relies on stateless communication between resource-based URLs. And the GraphQL provides a single endpoint for all that data queries, as we talked before about endpoints. And which of these are used? Basically, SOAP is used at an enterprise level in big organizations. RESTful, as I said, is used in web services, mobile application, Internet of Things, and microservices architecture, and GraphQL used in complex and interconnected data structures. Okay, demo time.
For this webinar, we will try to demo you some AI applications that are provided by Google in their Google Cloud stack. We will try to demonstrate you how you can work with an AI APIs for translation that you already do when you Google Translate it. Cloud vision, speech to text, text to speech, natural languages, video detection. It's not readily available yet in Flutter. OpenAI and Gemini AI is already not yet in Flutter. The following APIs will be presented in a Flutter demo app, and how it looks is something like this. We already did a demo app for you today, and we will go over the implementation from scratch. Basically, we will have some translations, some cloud visions, and also a ChatGPT that say, a second. What is an entrepreneur? That goes over to ChatGPT, ask him, and you get the response back. So basically, it's a get from the API of OpenAI. But first of all, let's head over to Google Cloud and tell you how to set things up. So basically, you will go to Google, search Google Cloud. You will have some promotional, and you need to go to the console. After you go to the console, because we already did some pre-requirements, you will need to set up a project. You will go to select a project if you have a project or you don't. New project, tell about some of your projects. So let's say app for hardcore entrepreneur. You create the project. You will have Google offers you $200 of credits for using APIs. If you don't break this limit, you will be fine, but you will need to link a card, I think, for bot prevention. So they don't use bots for their requirements. Okay, so after you start your project, you select your project. We are now working in app for a hardcore entrepreneur, and now we will go to APIs and services. You have a big collection of APIs that are readily available. We have 20 pages of 15, so approximately 1,000 APIs. Let's go over translations one. For each API that you will try to use, you will need to enable it first from the console. So we will use the Cloud Translation API that works pretty similar to your Google Translate experience. We will enable this API. We'll have some overview and some data about this API here, but we'll try to enable it. We wait a bit to enable it. And now we will have the dashboard of this API in our Cloud console. The most important part here is the following, is the credential part, when you try to push it. If you are developing a mobile app using if you are trying to use a mobile app via Firebase, you will have already API key for your Android or mobile or iOS application. But for time being, we will have here to configure a credential key, an API key. So we will press for the create credential, API key, and you will be covering an API key, but now I won't want to leak the API key for my account. Oh, already did. So now I have an API key that I will use it in my app. I will delete this one for now, but you get the message. All right, so we already configured the translation API, and we will potentially have an API key here. And now let's go over to Flutter. So let's start a new project in Flutter. We will use the demo template that the VS Code covers. Let's just delete this and start from scratch. First of all, in Flutter, as you already know from the past webinars, you will need to import. You will have a main Dart, and Flutter runs on widgets. So first of all, we will import the material.dart from the package of Flutter. Flutter .dart, and let's just say we'll have a homepage app homepage. All right, we'll import it as well. Now we'll have the main loop that initializes the application. Now we need to declare the class myApp. That is a stateless one because it doesn't change anything during running. Stateless widgets. Okay. Here we will have build widgets that you already learned in the previous course. And using the context of our application, we'll display the homepage. Using the already made template of material app from Google. We'll set the title. Entrepreneur 4.0. And we'll set the home page. All right. Now we will need to go over to the homepage one to create it. And for our homepage to look like this, to have some buttons, we will initialize some buttons that go over to the web APIs. But first of all, let's just make a simple page. Let's just take over and go to the ChatGPT page for the beginning. As you can see here, I have a text box, a set message, and agree that will display the response from ChatGPT. How we can do this? Basically, what we need, we will need the following things. Also the material package, since this is the just a second. Okay. For working with HTTP request in Flutter, we will need the HTTP package. That is important in this way. We will go firstly to the pubspec.yaml, but first of all, let's just write it so we don't forget about it. And also a converter for the JSON. We will add to our dependencies in pubspec.yaml. So it should be here right now. Let's just reload it. As you can see here, we have the latest version of HTTP dependencies in Flutter in pubspec.yaml, thanks of VS Code. And now we'll have a stateful widget that will be reloading the content generated by the OpenAI API, and we will display it, as you can see. So we will start with the class. That will create this state that we'll need to work with. We will have a text controller that takes our input in the text file that you can see here now and storing a variable. So we have a text editing controller. That's just text controller. And we initialize it. And also a list of for the messages that will be given by the ChatGPT OpenAI API. So we'll have a list of strings because there will be strings. Of messages. All right. Now we will need to work. This is the most important part. We will need to work with an API. How will you do that? First of all, you need to know that when you are trying to request something from a server in Flutter, you need to use the variable future that is waiting for you to get a request from the server. And after this, it will display your message. As you can see here, I don't have anything yet. This is a blank page. There is a widget that is asking for a thing that isn't yet ready yet because I didn't save a message. And when I send a message, what is future in Flutter? Let's just say it will give the answer. It will get the answer from the server, from the API of OpenAI in this example, and will then be display this this content. Okay, so using this, let's just have the send message part of our API that we will just send a string to OpenAI. Also is async. It's not synchronous communication. You can have multiple messages. Now you will need your API key. As I said, here is for Google Cloud, and for OpenAI, you will need to have a paid account for using it. ChatGPT Plus. You have an API page that you log in, an API key, you will generate it, you'll create a new secret key, and you will get a request of it. Let's hop back, and the way you're working with is you will have an URI that is, I think, something like this. api.openai.com. Chat. And what you will need to declare beforehand the API key. For the best practice of it isn't very good to put your API keys inside the code, because your code can be decompiled and get the API keys and run off over your cost in your project. The best way of doing this not in Flutter but in other languages is to use an environmental variable that you can set up in your root folder. It's like a private thing. That is my bad. That is .env. And here you will have your API key. Let's just say OpenAI.key and the key as well. And you will load it in your application at the runtime. So you don't have it in your code, but you can call it in your code to get hand of it. But for the time being, because Flutter is not working very well with env right now, we will just make it in our code for getting you to know how this works. So you will have here your OpenAI key. And you will have already set the URL that you will communicate. And now you need to make a post request. How we do this is set up a variable that will take the post request and that waits for the post request. Post. And now here you need to parse content that is given you by the API of OpenAI. How this is work is you will have here in your OpenAI documentation that tells you how it works. Basically, you have multiples of services that OpenAI gives you: image generation, text generation, models, and so on, and now video generation. And for each one, you will have a different type of request that you need to try to do. Now we will show you the request that you need to make for text generation of models like ChatGPT. First of all, you will need to parse the URL because you will get a JSON out of the request that you're trying to make. So we will parse the URI. And the headers for this will be made by this. You'll have an application of type JSON. And then you'll have to set up the authorization. Of your key. And now we can go over to the second part of getting the message. Now we authorize our application using the OpenAI key that you will set up here. And now you need to encode the access to your model, GPT 3.5 or 4, for example, and getting the message out of it. How you'll do this is the following part. You'll have a body of your content that you will encode using the encoder of JSON. This works the following way. You will set up your model. Let's just say we will want to use the cheaper model and get the messages. We'll have something like your role. If you are admin of your account or just a user, this is required because some accounts are of the business type. We are just a user of our account, and get the text content or a request. All right. Okay. Now, we will go over and ask the application if we get the HTTP code 200, that is the code for application successful. And now we ask, I have the response that has the status code 200 equal. If so, I'll get over and set up in my application the display that you see earlier with the content given by the query answer to ChatGPT. And now we will have the variable of data that we are given by the request. We need to decode now what is given in the JSON. And set the state of the content to add the messages given by us to ChatGPT and their responses. The text that you given in your text controller, text. I just put it in our brackets. And what ChatGPT gives us. The value of the ChatGPT answer. And now, how it looks, the format of it is in the following way. You will have a variable that has multiple headers. It's like a matrix. And here you will have the following thing. You will have the data of the response that you have earlier in your decode, because JSON is done in a tabular way of some sort. And you will have your choice of your model. You will have the first thing in your response, the first message, and the content of it. All right. But we will need to get also if the request is not successful, that in this case we'll throw just a message of error. Yeah. All right. Now we have the function of messages. And as you already know, if you are developing your application further, you will need the build object. to build up your from UI. This is done in the following way. You will have first of all the bar here of ChatGPT conversation. That is a scaffold. That has a bar property. Bar. We will set the title. And after this, we will be having the body. Just a second. And the title. GPT. Scaffold, a bar up, bar. Yeah, we need to wrap it in a text. All right. Now we will set up the body part of it. A column that will have some children of type widgets, because we'll have multiple widgets in our application. We'll have the text bar and so on. And let's just say about these children. First of all, you have the part, this white part where we'll be loading the content. That will have a list view. First of all, we will set up the counter of it. That will be the length of messages that we receive from our service. And we will build it as text. That you will see right now. All right. And let's just set up some padding of us all in our application. Have a bit of spacing. This is just styling as for now. I'll go over it pretty quickly for it. And also, let's just not forget the text field that we need to get the content to go over to ChatGPT. Let's set up the controller in our text field. It is the text controller that we defined earlier. Let's just have some decoration. not this one. We'll have some label of it, label text. Let the user know what to do. Just send a message to it. Let's put also the icon. Yes. The icon button. And for icons in Flutter, you can use the default collections of icons. We'll have this send, I think, icons, my bad. But send. The collection you are able to see here in material icons. This is the collection that is default in Flutter. And as you can see, I put the send one and I get this. If I want other, I will look for it and see how it's named and so on. You'll have here the name of it. Let's go back to our application. So we set up the icon, and also what we need to do in this part, in the bottom half of our application, is just say when it's pressed, go and request the message to be told. So, as you know, on press is the method that we are required to use in order to get this functionality. And now we will ask that is there a content in our field here? If it is, so if text controller is not empty, I will call the send message function with the value of a string that is inside the text controller. And also I will clear it, so I just don't have thing. All right. Just a bit, since I messed up a bit. And besides the API key that is not here, this is how you do this page. And now for I show you how to do this from scratch. And for saving some time, because we have a little bit of slides after this, I will go over the already implemented application and how it works for the rest of APIs. So as you can see here, I did the same thing as I told you. And in our application, we also have translation that is used as in Google Translate. They just say, hello, entrepreneur, if I able to type correctly. And let's just say we have to translate to Spanish, and I have the translation here. How it's done is in Flutter, and how you talk to the API of Google Translation is the following way. As before, you will have a text controller that takes the input from the user. You will have to set a future function that is asynchronous and waits for the response of the server. You will need to set up your API key, your URL that is given by your service. You can see it here in your cloud console. And you will have to wait and get a post request to the API server with your response and what target you are trying to reach with your target language. And if you have a request of successful request, you will decompose the JSON that is given to you, because JSON is look like this. Since we didn't put in presenter, you have something like this as a JSON, so you will need to clear up a bit your things. This translation API works with data, translation, and translated text as a response. And after this, you will clear up a bit and just take your translated text that you are receiving, and also you will have a little page that will have a text controller. You will put the text field here. You'll have a button and will be given back the translation that is given to you by the function translated or in Spanish. If I want, I can put it to Romanian as well and have this to Romanian. Let's just save it and make a reload to our application. It will take a little while. And let's go. Okay. And we will get the request that we need. So this is an AI that takes our language and translated it as you have in Google Translate. From the following list that we have prepared for you, I will have one more API and then I will pass it to my colleague. I will have the natural languages. So as well, we set up here the API for translation. We set up the open API key, and now natural languages. What is this? Is an API based on AI that can give you understanding of a context of a text. So basically, think of it like you have poetry, and this AI is able to see what is the main feeling of the text and giving you some input. If the text is positive, the text is negative, and you can use it in some pretty specific cases, like in application that are using this are application that try to mimic a therapist using AI. And based on the user info, you can get some information about what he is feeling or what the text is trying to say. As before, you will enable this. Let's just say poetry about love. I don't know. Let's just get a poem already made. Okay. Okay. Now, we started this API. As before, we'll have the credential because you don't need to make a different type of credential for each API that you enable. You have already made your API key. And how this is done in Flutter, you will have already, as I told you before, a function that is future that will have the URL to communicate with the API of language, natural processing. You have your API key, your post. You'll have your content type of JSON, because this is a JSON application and will have HTTP request. You'll have a plain text that is given by your text controller, this field here. And now if you have here the response to 100, you'll have some overall score that is given by this application. You will need to check a bit every API that you use, because they have different types of output for yourself. For this natural language one, you can see here in the documentation how the response looks like. And based on the documentation, you need to have these fields in your response. So we'll get the overall sentiment and the score from this text. And also you will have I did some checking before. If I have here you need to have entities. These are the sentiments that is given by your API. And if you don't have, you will have also failed very nice text. And also in the UI, you will have an up bar, you will have a text controller, as you see here, a button that is with analyze, and after this, you will have, if the request is not empty, that is done as this in Flutter, it will build you a list view of the entities and the score. So let's just put this poetry part. Let me be able to copy it. I should have it here and put it to analyze. So here it wasn't able to see if it's love or not, but he's aware of the stars and the sky, and this is not a text that is easy for him to describe. And now I will let my colleague Rizwan to take over for the next part of APIs that we are sharing.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Vlad. Now we will move on to do something with images. We will do something called Cloud Vision. Basically, it's something that Google provides for us, and it lets us detect from an image. It lets us detect what there is. So going to Cloud Vision page.
With speak image. Now, this emulator, the Android emulator, basically on the Google Pixel, it will give us this image on the camera. We will take a photo of it, because as we set up the code, then it takes the source as the camera. So what the camera sees, we can take a photo of it, and we can hit on confirm. And now it will detect that this is the image that we want to analyze. And when we hit analyze, it will see it will tell us what it sees. So this is gesture, apparently some tints and shades, which is true. A logo apparently, and so on and so forth, some magenta. Okay, but let's see how we actually implement the Cloud Vision page. Let's do a Dart file called Cloud Vision page Dart. Okay, we will have to import the Dart convert. or a converter, which is basically the JSON converter. Then import the dart.io. Okay. And we import the package Flutter material Dart, which is the most important. Now we will also import the HTTP as Vlad imported it. Now let's import the PHP calls. Because this is how we will actually pick images. Good. While they are importing, let's start building our app. We will start with the Cloud Vision page. We will call it Cloud Vision page. It sends the state Cloud Vision page, which basically it accepts a stateful widget first. And we will create a Cloud Vision page state. Here we will do what I did earlier. First, let's create a state. Cloud Vision page state. Okay. And this basically overrides now we will basically build this class, the Cloud Vision page state, which this one extends the state called Cloud Vision page. Okay, and now we can start building it. First, we will have to take the file which we want to upload. So we will see the image. We'll define the file as image. Then the string result, which we will use later to tell if there is an image loaded or not, which will be the string parameter. And then we will do an image picker. Okay. Now let's build the method getImage, which is also asynchronous. So we will define final pick file. This is the image that we want to upload. And we will tell it to wait until we pick an image from the source. We will define it as camera, image source.camera. So this is how we actually get input from the camera. Then we will set state. Okay. So now we will have to tell if the picked file is not null. We will specify the path of the image, and we will say that the result basically means that the image was loaded. That's the result. So image equals file. If it's not loaded, if the image is not loaded, then the result will say no image selected. No image. Good. Okay, we will fix it for later. Now we have to do the analyze image function, which is a void. Now, if the image is not existent, basically it doesn't exist. If it's equal to null, then we will set the state for the result to say that no image was selected. This goes inside here. And if it detects an image, then we will just learn it. Good. Now we will declare our bytes variable because we will read the image and basically convert it to bytes. And then we will have to encode it, the image that we take. We're using the base 64 encode, which takes the parameter bytes, the bytes we have got earlier. And now let's find our response, which is an HTTP post. And now we'll pass our URI, like the API key. It will be your API key, the one that Vlad showed you how to take it and how to use it. So now we will define the headers. So it's a content JSON. The body, it will be JSON encode, which will take the parameters requests, and it will have the image as a request, which the image will have the content, which are basically for image. And then we will see the features. And here we will define this, the type. And met results equal. Let's say for now. Good. Parsing. Okay, let's see if we closed everything as we should. We will get on that later, on that error. But basically, this is how it should be done. Then we have to check if the request method works, if we will get the status code 200. So we check if response status code in 200 equals. So if that happens, then we will have to decode the JSON in a variable called data. And we will set state. We did just like Vlad did with the matrix. And put it as a method label. Okay. We make it a list and then do a string. Good. Now, if the response is not 200, we will have to also check on that. So we will set state. The result will be fail to analyze image. Good. Now let's actually build our app. We will see the widget build context. Okay, it will return a scaffold. Now we're building this page, the Cloud Vision API page. Let's put the buttons. Shall be on. Okay, the button is pressed. We will call the get inch. A child. Now let's build the analyze button. Okay, so we can also expand on this, and if the image is null, then we will return the text no image selected. If it's true, then the image will be okay. Now we will ignore the errors. We will just focus on building the app, and then we will do a checkup at the end. Okay. Good. Okay, let's see what we have done wrong. In general, this is how it should be built. It probably doesn't like this. I've tried to to add it, but usually when you want to add the dependencies, you just go to problems here, and then you click right click on this, and it should be a task that a tab that says insert dependency. But for now, this is how the app would look. The Cloud Vision app will look. Instead of Cloud Vision API here, it will be Cloud Vision test as we have wrote on underneath. But it will do the same thing. And now also I wanted to show you the text-to-speech API, which we haven't. I don't think we have the time to implement it right now. So I will just go and show it to you already implemented. Okay, so the text-to-speech, it will basically take the input of our text and convert it to speech. I don't think it will be able to actually hear it, but give a thumbs up if you actually can hear it, because the emulator will emulate the sound that can be heard on this device. I don't know if Teams also shares the audio, but we will see. Let's say that we want to say and we will synthesize our audio, and then we will play it. Okay, I don't think it has been heard by you, but I can hear it. Okay, how we implemented it was this way. We created the text-to-speech page. We implemented the audio players that are the package. Also the convert. Basically, we added the text editing controller, we will say, which takes an audio player, and it turns the it takes a string, the audio base 64. We then added our API keys and the URL. We parsed through it with the input being the text, the voice being in what language we hear it, the voice to be returned to us, and the audio config, like the audio encoding, we chose MP3. And then if the response status code is 200, which means it was successful, then we decode the body, audio content, and we set the status message as audio content ready, press A, as it was here when we first synthesize it. If not, it gives us the error synthesizing. So this is the message that we get. Then we created the function play audio, which is asynchronous, and if the string is not empty, the audio base 64 string is not empty, then we will play the bytes in the base 64 decoded audio that we decoded earlier. And as you see it says the status messaging audio when we actually play the audio. So there is no errors. Good, and here we actually built the page. And I think that this is all the pages that we wanted to show. We can move back to the presentation.
Yes, I will take it over from now. Before moving forward, I just want to emphasize that these are our examples that we try to share today. The fact is that they are not just only these APIs. You can use multiple APIs over your application. You can have APIs that are not just built by big dogs like Google, OpenAI, and some sorts. You have this website that is Rapid API. This is the biggest hub of APIs made by developers that can be used in your application. And also, you can use this application in context to one another. You can use APIs that talk to one another. So let's just say I just want to have an API that gives me TLDR, that is too long to read, or a summarize of this content. As you can see, most of them use the same thing of JSON as you had before, an application type of JSON, a key, where is it over the internet, and you can use it with a context of a content that is given by the user, or let's just say you have an API that gives you some information about the city. You have the REST, that documentation for this that you can also have here from Fast API. You see how this is looking over for a city, and you can use it with this API with the content that is given to give you a resume of your city or some sort of. And also you can have Postman that hosts APIs that are very readably available for you to use, and most of them are free. And also APIs are not just only for content that you saw today. You can have multiple categories of APIs that you can use it and cross-reference it with another APIs. You can use for whatever you want to implement in your application for this hackathon. Let's just go back to our presentation. So we covered a bit of this implementation in Flutter. And for the end, just some words on some case studies. You can have in big corporations problems that can be used and will be used with APIs, and nowadays with AI APIs. Like, as I said earlier in our presentation, you have recommendation systems that are used by Netflix, and also you have Spotify that wanted to implement some personalized playlist for each account that they have on their application, and they didn't have the ability to do this for every user in a manual way because it would be too much labor, and use it using some APIs that fetch the data from their user base and computed some of your top genre and top artists. You can have some playlists that are done for you and for you only via their APIs with Discover Weekly or Daily Mix. And this increases the engagement of their services instead of going to Apple Music or Deezer, for example. And also a credit card company that is like Visa or MasterCard, it's American Express. They are based mostly in the United States. They have a big problem with credit card fraud because this is a very big domain nowadays that is being done via AI and also AI APIs because they need to communicate the services one to another. And basically what they tried to say was they used some AI API that analyzes the transactions that are done in real time and uses with cross-platforming with other APIs that give you the data from each card member and other API that computes the patterns. And yes, of course, they did a significant reduction in transactions that were fraudulent. And these are just some case studies that are being done with AI APIs, but also, as I said before, you can implement these AI APIs in other contexts with other APIs that can talk to each other or can just be done with just one APIs, and imagination is the limit. So basically, this was our presentation of AI APIs for today's. And if there are any questions or related things.
If there are, they can send us also on WhatsApp and we can answer. So
yeah,
thank you.
No problem.
Yes.
Thank you for today.
Thank you also.
You will have also the presentation given to you, I think.
Yes.
So yeah.
This was it.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.